One day last winter, some American friends and myself set off to seek the first men. Our objective? To reach some of the world's oldest paleontological sites in the delta of the Omo River and the southern tip of Ethiopia, East Africa. The Omo expedition will last 21 days. We will see nothing during that time except for a muddy river hemmed in by 2 mountain ranges. To keep us going these 3 weeks, we take along rations and equipment stowed in inflatable waterproof bags which are meant to be unsinkable. Only the wash of the river keeps us rolling on. There is no turning back. We are the river's captives. For many long days, the only living beings we see are hippos, whole tribes of them, and a few Nilotic crocodiles, the largest in the world. Woo! 10,000 years ago, the river we are going down was a tributary of the Nile. It was from here, perhaps 2 million years ago, that early man set off north to people the world. The chief obstacles to settling in the Omo Valley, a basalt rock terrain, mountains, and swarms of tsetse flies. These large flies with their crossed wings are carriers of that awesome disease known as sleeping sickness, which takes thousands of lives every year, even today in East Africa. We will pitch camp each evening on the sandbanks vacated by the hippos. There, we sometimes catch catfish, which becomes our daily feed. Barbuses of the Silurus type, electric catfish, and African lungfish are veritable living fossils. As for the water, it's delicious. We're at the end of the rainy season. We will go down 500 miles of river in a series of drops, in a heat that stifles us by degrees, against a backdrop of vegetation comprising of wild fig trees, tropical lianas, and banyan trees with their myriad trunks growing down to the ground like props. This is the land of the colobus, the Ethiopian goreza monkey with its splendid fur and rudder tail. Monkeys whose habitat is the treetops of the open forest and which, swinging from tree to tree, can travel faster than we can on the ground. In our rubber rafts, especially designed to stand up to rapids, and particularly reefs, we topple down the river as if we're falling downstairs, a drop of nearly 700 feet a day. The Omo Valley remains one of the areas in the world where man does not dominate, and where animals, and especially plant life, burst forth in freedom. Now this day, one of our boats gets caught in a little whirlpool that looked harmless enough. Fortunately, our gear was battened down, but 4 members of our team took a 20-foot plunge to the bottom of the river. And there, at last, the first man appeared, at an altitude of 2,500 feet. We have just penetrated the territory of the Nilotic peoples, also called Nilo-Saharans. The Bume, the Bodi, and the Mursi live in one of Africa's most isolated and most inaccessible regions, a truly forgotten country. The peoples of the Omo have only been known to us for a few years, so the Mursi are just as curious to see us as we to meet them. Who are they? Men and women who came from the West, from the Saharan regions, perhaps 6,000 years ago when the Sahara was turning into a desert. Since time began, men, and perhaps women even more so, have sought to stand out from nature. Hence the use of tattooing and the jewelry made of bone, wood, or feathers. But Mursi women devised the idea of stretching their lips. They fit into the lip a clay disc, which is replaced by a bigger and bigger one, a heavier and heavier one as the years go by. The greatest care being taken, however, not to split the lip. That would be a great humiliation. These discs, which for them are real works of art, can reach diameters of 6 or 7 inches. Size is in direct proportion to prestige. This form of mutilation is an inconvenience when they speak, and even more so when they eat or go to sleep. But such is the price of beauty. As we meandered down the river from camp to camp, the riverside dwellers fled into the forest only to come back most cautiously. But after a few hours, they grew more confident, and would then start to cage razor blades from us. For another stylishness wants men to have skin which is as smooth as the palm of their hand, except for a crown of hair looking like a skull cap. Every day, they recreate fire by rubbing a piece of hardwood in the vein of a piece of softwood. At what period did man realize that by rubbing 2 pieces of wood together, or 2 flints, he could set a light to twigs in a matter of minutes? An operation requiring great skill. And yet, in the south of Europe, traces of a hearth 400,000 years old has been found. But actually, creating fire was an invention of paramount importance in the fight against darkness, the hardening of wooden tools, the protection against wild animals, the exorcising of fear, and the taking of a honeycomb from the hollow trunks of large trees. But man also stood out from the animal world by inventing tools, traps to hunt with, and those implements for agriculture. When the rain stops, the water level in the river goes down and silt is deposited on the banks. It's then that the fields have to be tidied up. This man is poking his wooden stick in the ground at an angle so as not to compact the soil. A woman follows. A seed is dropped in the hole and covered up. The birth of agriculture. This was 11,000 years ago. Intelligent and devious, man was also the inventor of traps. Innumerable traps for group or lone hunting. A few wisps of reeds, a supple branch, and some thread. This sophisticated snare will perhaps get a bird. The 4 or 5